Good afternoon and welcome to beautiful Pickett, Wisconsin on this May 11th. It's a spring day. It's just spectacular weather here. 74 degrees, very light winds, clear skies, and the engine that many of you have been waiting for, and including myself. This is my friend Chris's OS FS120 Surpass SP engine. This is the first time I've ever held, ran, touched, well, I've held it, but run one of these engines ever for my channel. So this is a big thing. And this is the only engine I'm going to be running here today because this one demands my full attention. So let me just talk a little bit about it. Right now I've got an APC 16.6 prop on here for break-in. This is the first time this thing's ever seen fuel. This run is strictly a break-in run, so don't get too excited about seeing high RPM numbers because that's not happening. And I spent quite a bit of time going back and forth with Chris talking about prop sizes, and I've got other props here that I'll talk about too. And I felt a 16.6 was going to be the better one for me to do a break-in run for several reasons. And one of them is I want to try to keep the RPM down a bit for the first run, but I also wanted to fit a spinner on it. And some of these other props, two of these other props that are actually recommended competition props, they won't allow this spinner to fully seat on there because of how thick the hub is. So unfortunately, when I get to running those props, which will be a separate video, separate videos, I'll have to remove the spinner and just go to the nuts that came with this engine. So I've got a tank of, this is a 16-ounce tank, but I probably have about, it looks like some leaked out of the tank, and I don't understand how that could be. I've got probably about 12 to 14 ounces of Omega 15% fuel here with a little bit of added caster. I've got it plumbed just as it shows in the manual, which I will put a short video up here showing you that. Okay, so here's my plumbing setup. This blue line here came on the engine, and it says out and to the carb. This line here is the return line that goes just back into the tank, and this line here is the inlet, fuel inlet from the tank, the filler to the tank into the pump mechanism itself. I've got the throttle stop screw set to 1 millimeter, which is what's recommended by OS in their manual. I've got this high-speed needle open 2.5 turns, which is also recommended in their manual, or whatever the number of turns is in the manual. And I'm going to be operating this exactly according to what they say in the manual for break-in, which is basically you start it up, go to full throttle, peak the RPM for 3 seconds or 5 seconds, then back it off a half a turn, the high-speed needle a half a turn for 10 seconds. Then lean it for 5, richen it for 10, lean it for 5, richen it for 10. So that's kind of how it's going to be. The only time I'm really going to be taking an RPM reading maybe is initially, just to see what it's hitting, but I'm not going to be sitting there holding the tachometer because I'm going to be focused strictly on operating this engine. Now the manual says basically you're running this at full throttle the whole time and you're only adjusting it by the high-speed needle. I've never really liked that, but we're going to do it according to what they say and see how it goes. So I believe the other props I brought with me today, so there could be multiple runs today. One is a 1410, that's one that would not fit in here. I've got a 15.6, again, would not fit in here. I don't believe the 15.6 might, I don't know. But then the other one is a 14, so I got two competition props, a 1414 and a 1410. Again, they won't fit inside the spinner, so they're going to be later runs. I'll be running the same fuel. I've got an OSF glow plug, which is what came with this engine. So now we'll just swallow deeply, take a deep breath, and fire this thing up. Okay, one thing I neglected to mention in the intro is that it also says to prime this engine at about partial throttle and spin it over with a starter for 3 to 10 seconds depending on if the engine's new. 10 seconds if it's new. Yeah, so I'm going to do that, and then you close the throttle and fire it up as normal. So okay, so in theory that engine should be primed. Now I'm going to set it at partial throttle. I just do that for my own safety. And let's see what happens. Okay, so that's interesting. So I'm going to close this all the way and start over. So here we're closed. 1, 2.5 turns, and let's fire it up again and see what happens. It got a little warm. I wonder if it blew that plug out already. That's just odd that it's doing that. I am not, oh, that supercharger is really cold. That's interesting. I'm not really sure. That's cool. It's cool and it's cool. I'm not really sure why this is happening, but my little thing here came loose, so I'm gonna reset this, or at least set this up there so I can screw that back in. I'm not sure why that sounds so rich like that when it is set per the manual. Okay, let's do this again. So there's closed. 1, 2.5. And we're at partial throttle. Okay, so there you have it. That's the first run ever of this engine. Now, there are some things that were a little bit scary, and one of them was that it started loosening up on this mount. And I had really torqued those screws. So this round sexton stand, on the next run, we'll see if it'll hold this thing. 'Cause I really torqued the crap out of them, but I also heard that if you torque too much, these aluminum channels may not hold up. So it's like, yeah. So you may say, well, here the carb's here and the tank is here, it's low. And I was thinking that same thing too. I'm thinking, well, maybe I just have the tank position a little bit low, and maybe that's why it wasn't firing up or running right at first. But it's a pumped engine. Tank position should not have much bearing on anything. It's a pumped engine, it should be able to pump that fuel. So I could either raise the tank a hair, which I really don't want to do. But the other thing was, I think 2.5 turns is just super freaking rich. I mean, really rich. Like some Sato manuals for 120 say, or maybe even some OS manuals say, start with 5 turns open. And it's like, that is just stupid. 5 turns open, the thing won't even hardly run. So it seemed like, now I got pretty warm. And it's so cool about the supercharger, because the supercharger was cool. But it got warm and got up to operating temperature, and I think, as far as I'm concerned, that was a very successful first run for me not knowing what I'm doing with this engine. So, Harvey, for you, yeah, it's kind of cool, I guess. It sounds cool, I guess, but I can tell you right now, categorically, Chris, hate to tell you this, but I'm not trading my Sato 200 Ti for this. I wouldn't want this engine. It's fun to run, but I mean, at low RPM, it vibrates hellaciously. I could see it. And this is a balance prop, you know, aluminum spinner, new stand, and it even says in the manual and in some of the review articles, this thing vibrates, and it does. It's a shaking, bacon, frickin' engine. So yeah, it's fun, it's cool engineering, but I wouldn't want to own this, no. It's a nice engine, and when I'm done running it, Chris, I'll lube it all up for you, send it back. I wouldn't want to own one of these, not for the amount of money, and the fact that I can't service the engine myself is just a deal breaker there. But I mean, it's a wonderful piece of OS engineering, and it was a fantastic engine run as far as I'm concerned, so thank you all for watching.